Welcome to the Strategic Thinkers podcast. This is an episode that I believe is going to be really useful to people, not just that are on LinkedIn, but universally, because one of the things we're talking about is how things are shifting and the importance of being able to make those types of adjustments. This is going to be someone that has a wealth of experience with LinkedIn and has been on it for years and has been able to see the evolution of it. When it went from people going on there talking about getting jobs to people starting to shift into entrepreneurship. And now, one of the things that we joked about is every time I go on, I feel like everybody's an expert and nobody's really asking questions. So it's great to have someone that can come on and talk about the evolution of it. So with that, what I'll say is let's start with the promise. By the end of this episode, you'll know exactly when to throw out your old playbook and how to adapt without losing yourself, whether it's work, relationships, or building something meaningful. This conversation with Scott will help you thrive when the rules keep changing. So, Scott, I'd love to say welcome and thank you so much for your time.
Well, Sean, just grateful to be here and looking forward to a great conversation.
I appreciate it. Okay, well, let's dig into it because I want to be mindful of your time. We're talking about the evolution of LinkedIn and just these social platforms and just things in general. Walk me through that moment when you realized LinkedIn was shifting again and you made adjustments to your approach because everyone has their own version of stories. I would say universally, we all have things that worked a year ago or a few months ago that doesn't work the same way now. So, how do you distinguish between a rough patch and then something that's actually a fundamental shift?
So I would say there's been different iterations and evolutions of how LinkedIn works. It's the oldest of the social media platforms. Beta version launched in 2001, and it was then opened up to everyone in 2002. So it's over 20 years old. And for me, I got in there in 2009 for different purposes. It was basically just for visibility for at that time in my business career, I had a few brick and mortar fitness clubs. And 2013 was when I really started to leverage it from a client acquisition standpoint and then obviously coaching. I would say it in the last 18 months, I've seen the platform change more dramatically than in the past 13 years. And the reason why I say this, it almost I could see it coming in all honesty, because a lot of people pick up on trends and easy buttons. And for anyone that has spent any time on LinkedIn, they've probably received and at some point or not, those 18 paragraph long drunkalog verbal vomit messages of people selling and pitching and book a link and, here, whatever it is. So the old school mentality was the message game. So connecting and messaging, connecting and messaging, connecting and messaging. And there's still a lot of LinkedIn strategists that teach that. They play this numbers game, but I have this reminder of, just a simple quote, never stop farming. Because there's two mentalities. There's the hunter mentality and there's the farmer mentality. The hunter mentality is just going in for the kill, not even caring about the relationship, just blindly just going for it. But that farmer mentality, if you think about what it actually takes to reap a harvest and the cycle of that, you have to plant the seed, right? You have to make sure that the soil and the fertilizer is right. You have to make sure that whatever's in the soil is fruitful for that seed to then grow and flower and blossom. And it takes months, years. It takes a long time for something to come to fruition. So there's been this really big shift over the last year and a half of people moving away from the spray and pray methodology where they're just connecting, messaging, but now they're doing more farming, which is the appropriate way to go about business. And again, I spend a lot of time on the platform each day, every day. It's something I teach, I consult, I speak upon. So I see all the changes and I report when I see a change. And I would say for me, what is driving the most business success right now on LinkedIn, yes, it's predicated on the quality of the connections that you have,
Mhm.
but to allow the tipping point to take place, it's the quality of your content. If your content stinks. No one's going to engage, which means you have no way to nurture and, bring people closer to you. And that's why one of the main focuses that I have with my one-to-one clients, my group coaching clients, my community members is going all in with high quality content that
Mhm.
educates, that informs, that tells stories, that brings people closer to you instead of pushing them further away.
Absolutely. I think what you're touching on is the customer journey and the path of the customer journey. There are people that have, I joke where I said, sometimes people will call me and I'm like, you're still using that sales script from like the 80s and 90s. I know it so well. I was actually on a call with someone and he did it on a Zoom session where he actually had, uh, I'm assuming it's what he called his mentor, but I just said like that guy was like the worst thing for him because he actually showed up on the call and he like the moment you bring someone else on the call, in my mind, and I'll bring it to like an East Coast thing, he sunned them on his own call. And I'm like, I can't take you seriously if you have to bring this person on to be able to speak for you. So customer journey wise and sales wise, I think it's important to not just know what you want to be able to accomplish, but the real goal is figuring out how to be able to shorten the sales cycle. And by having things where you're creating value and you understand your audience, those are going to be things that allow you to be able to get to that meaningful and significant conversation a lot faster. We talked about AI, or at least I mentioned it. But what I'm looking at is AI raised the floor, but it's also setting the expectations. So now people aren't as impressed by just the older standards. They have to start looking at new ways to be able to do something because AI basically just said, okay, I'm going to process everything that everyone's been doing. And then I'll take that and say, okay, well, how you can here's an output. But the thing is with the output is only as good as the input. If you don't know what to be able to give it, it's going to give you something generic to come out of. And then I think that goes back to what you're talking about with value, because if you're not giving it enough to be able to work with, if you can't tell it who your audience is, and I'm not talking about like the demographics, I'm talking about the psychographics where you can get into more details, then it puts them in a position where you're going to get generic information. And then that's why when we look on the feed, there's a lot of things that look exactly the same. And this is one of those opportunities where I think it's hurting some people, but that's just actually helping other people. And I think that's one of the things that you help people with is figuring out how to be able to stand out in a place where now there's more people than ever posting. So one, thank you for that because it makes my feed easier. I can actually enjoy looking at some of the things that go but yeah, we talked about experts overnight, and in some cases they're legit people. In other cases, these are people that are posturing. One of the things that stood out to me is you're not just someone that's helping people with LinkedIn. I want to say you've got over 500 or 533 written recommendations. So that's proof of concept. So can you walk me through what it looks like to kind of get someone out of the bad habits that they have? Because the only way you can create new habits is if you get rid of some of the bad ones that you have.
I think it first starts with a willingness to learn something new. When people are stubborn and set in their ways, there's nothing I can do to help them. But when someone comes to me and says, listen, I've been trying this for so many months, so many years, and it's not working. I need it to work this time. I'm open. I'm ready. I'm willing. I'm going to be coachable. That's the person that's going to get the best results. But also, if someone is thinking that they can hop onto LinkedIn and start having some quick wins in 2 or 3 days or even 2 to 3 weeks, you're going to be sadly mistaken because LinkedIn is a slow burn. It is a platform that takes time, it takes energy, and it takes effort. And I tell people, and just like how you started your episode with a promise, I always start a coaching agreement with my clients with a commitment. And I ask them, are you committed to applying this strategy for a full 12 months?
Mm,
And if you are, you're going to succeed. If you aren't, or if you say you are, but you
hmm
stop,
hmm
then you won't.
Yes.
So for me, the recommendations that have happened over the last number of years, even though there's 533, there's a there's a lot. I haven't found anyone that has any more than me, but there's countless others that I've worked with, and they went back on their commitment and they started using it and they stopped. And I compare this a lot of what I do to the fitness industry because I had an almost 2-decade career in the fitness industry for almost 18 years. And I always told people that, listen, you can't expect to walk in here and work with me for 30 days and see a huge change. This is a lifestyle change because if you stop working out, if you stop eating healthy, what do you think is going to happen? It's going to go back to the way that it was before. Just like if you are using LinkedIn regularly the right way and you're making new connections, you're booking calls, you're creating great content, you're converting people into your business, and you stop connecting with people, you stop messaging people, you stop creating content, you're stopping your business. So, interestingly enough, at the time that we're recording this, I was on a virtual summit earlier today
Okay.
and we got to the Q&A portion and this one person asked, what's really the likelihood of me succeeding?
Mm.
And it was a very broad question. I can't guarantee
Yeah.
anyone's success.
Yeah.
And I simply said, if you're committed to growing your business, if you're committed to serving people the way that you know that you can serve them, and if you're committed to leading with a human centric approach, then you'll succeed. If you try to automate any of your processes, which you can't do on LinkedIn, you cannot have any third party tools attached to your profile that connect and message. You can't have people logging in acting as you. So they were like, so I have to do this on my own? And I said, yeah, LinkedIn has publicly come out and said, if you cannot use this platform yourself organically and take the time to do it, it's probably not the platform for you. And that is the honest to God truth. So if you're committed to your business, if you're committed to growth and you can commit to this LinkedIn strategy, you're going to be committed to achieving your goals.
Got it. No, that actually makes sense. One of the things that I heard in that is, uh, there are people that will say they're going to make the commitment, but it's one of those Jerry Maguire type of moments of help me help you. I can't want it more than you want it, because if that's the case, then if I'm honest, I don't want to work with those people. It's a red flag for me when it's something where I can see they're not committed. And it's the start and stop. The start and stop is does more damage than not doing anything at all. Because a broken clock could be right twice. But if you start and you give people the impression of that you're one thing, and then you stop doing it, then they're like, "Well, I felt like I saw something," and it just confuses them even more. So I'm definitely in agreement with that. I would say most people wait until they're failing before they start looking at change. So, what are some of the early warning signs that people should be looking out for? And what's the difference between finding those early warning signs and then the ones where they're waiting until they're forced to make the change? Because I mean, desperation drives all kind of people to do all kind of things.
Well, what I'll say is the people that end up in backed into a corner where they're in desperate times where they quote unquote, this has to work,
Hmm.
that's an automatic red flag. And I'm not the person you want to work with because what that statement tells me is you've let it go too long and too far and you're too deep in it that you're literally on your last lifeline.
Hmm.
And I don't want to be responsible for that because that's someone that needs a cash injection right now. And Sean, I sometimes make the hard advice where I say, listen, go take your skills, get a part-time job or a full-time job, even though you don't want to, have some steady income coming in that still allows you to build your side business on the side. And until that business grows to the point where you can step back from the full or part-time job, you're not going to until you reach that point. And it's a pride swallowing moment for a lot of people. They don't want to hear that advice, but I've given that advice more often than not. And months later, people have reached out and thanked me. They found a job that they're actually happy with and they have
Hmm.
consistent income coming in. So they're paying down some of their debt, or that income has allowed them to focus and do their business on the side without adding any more time to their day than they're currently spending. Now, warning signs. The easiest warning sign, and I know this may sound very elementary, but it's the truth, is your business is going backwards and not forwards. And for some people, they latch on to what is called the ostrich effect, where they know something isn't going right. They know there's cracks in the hull of their boat, but they're not willing to fix the leak and they're slowly sinking, right? It's
Hmm.
just, oh, that's just a little bit of water. It's not gonna make a difference, right? But the fact is that if you let that leak go too long over time, that boat will sink. So you can't bury your head in the sand and pretend like everything is okay and everything is fine and dandy when it's not. So you do need to look at your finances. You do need to look at your P&L. You do need to look at your KPIs. So if things are going backwards, that's the biggest, I would say, biggest moment where you need to start doing something different.
Hmm.
But the second biggest is if you have not seen growth, even by 5% between, I would say, 2 and 6 quarters of your business, something is not working. So Nancy and I have a benchmark of our company growing between 20 to 30% every year. That is our goal. So we know numerically what number we always have to hit to make that happen. And as it stands right now, we're up close to 45% this year. So we're
Nice.
over 15% of our goal. But what I can tell you is too many people don't break down their goals enough so they know what they actually have to do. So when you get into a phase of business where you're bringing revenue in, you have to have a monetary GPS to plug into your system. So every October, Nancy and I actually sit down and we start game planning for the year ahead.
Hmm.
So in Q4, we start planning for Q1 through 4 of the next year. So we track where we're going to be by the end of this current year and we start planning ahead. All right, what's our monthly goal? What's our quarterly goal? What's our yearly goal? And that allows us to really focus on the things, the products, the service, the offerings that we have that will allow us to hit that number. So if you're listening to this and if you're watching this and you're like, man, Scott, you're speaking right to me. You know, my business is going backwards or my business hasn't grown in 2 or 3 years. That is literally the universe shaking you by the shoulder. Say, listen, the definition of insanity of doing this is doing the same thing
It
each and
is.
every day, expecting something to change. And it's not. All you have to do, and this is what I remind people, is be a trailblazer, right? Go against the grain. Go the opposite direction of what other people are doing, because obviously going in the direction that you're going in is not working. And when you change something, something will change. But if you change nothing, nothing is ever going to change.
I apologize for interrupting the episode, but I wanted to share something with you. Here's the hard truth about business growth: timing isn't everything, readiness is. Most businesses fail at scaling not because of the opportunity, but because they weren't prepared for the growth that they were seeking. Growing too fast can be expensive when you don't have the right foundation, but growing with the right things in place, that's transformational. I created the Business Growth Readiness Assessment, and it helps evaluate exactly where your business stands and where you need to be in order to pursue the growth that you're seeking. It takes about 10 minutes to complete and gain clarity on where your business is and the next steps to be able to take. The link's in the description. So let's get you back over to the episode. Absolutely. Well, let me do this as well because I want to bring it to. I'm going to break it down for the early stage businesses. There are things that I had to create because I realized that the early stage ones, it technically takes at least 18 months to really start to figure out your business. A lot of times in that early stage, you're winging it because there's a lot of things that you don't know that you need to know, and you have no numbers to compare it against. So the reality is you want to try to go in with a plan and real goals. And what you spoke to is not just setting some long-term goal that you can't really track. This is why I believe in milestones. There are milestones like one of the first things that you're going to want to figure out is how to be able to start turning a profit. Are you generating enough so that you can pay your bills? Are you getting to the point where you're breaking even? Because if you're breaking even, then you know that you're on to something. And then you can start looking at, okay, well, how do I get into the black from there and start generating not revenue, but actual profit? And you need to be able to start to put milestones in place that allow you to be able to track those things. So it's not always about likes. It's not always about comments. It's about progress, and making sure that you're seeing what you need to be able to see with that. One of the other things that you talked about was the hidden cost of just letting something go, even when you know it's not working. I did something where there was an article and I said the $108,000 cost of just winging it, and it's something where if you do the math, if you want to pay yourself $75 an hour and you say you're going to work around 20 hours a week, if you run that up against 18 months, that's $108,000. That's not even taking into consideration apps or any of the other things that you have to be able to pay for. So it's really, really important to be able to make sure that you understand and be intentional. And then I'm in 100% agreement. It's something where there are a lot of people that want to copy what they see someone else do, and the problem with that is that's their story. So unless you're taking pieces that you can customize and go, you know what, that part, that is part of my story. But it's not, I'm not trying to take their whole story, because the problem that people end up running into is when someone asks a follow up question and you're using someone else's story, you can't follow through on that. And then it makes you seem more like a fraud. And credibility and trust is something that once you lose it, I don't know that you ever really fully get it back. So those are things that I would say for early stage businesses. Don't just go chase the new shiny thing, the trending thing, because a lot of times by the time you see it, they've already gone through iterations of it. They've tested it. They've gone through it. They've figured out, okay, well, this is how it's working. That's why you found it, because the first few iterations never got found by anybody. So understand when you see something, you're probably getting like the fifth or sixth version of it. And you have to understand that you need to be doing the same thing. So I appreciate that you were able to bring that up and talk about it. And then I just wanted to make it for the earlier stage businesses. Understand you're not going to figure everything out right the first time, but you have to be able to understand when you're doing something and it's not working and it's not getting you what you want. This isn't about starting and stopping. It's about being honest with yourself and revising things. I love that you brought up Nancy, because that was going to be one of the things that I was talking about. Building something in a silo where it's just you and you're in your own head, it allows you to forget that, like, you can make it about yourself and forget that you're supposed to be addressing a challenge, the job to be done, the solutions, the challenges and struggles and things that you're actually supposed to be addressing. So when it comes to that, how do you get people out of their head of thinking it's about them and remind them it's about the customer they're actually trying to help? Because I think that's where the value disconnect comes in, because people are thinking, well, this is my idea. I put so much into it. And they're so busy thinking about what they put into it, they forgot who they were trying to do it for.
The true value or success of a business is not about how much money you're making.
Mhm.
It's about how many people you're serving, because the money is just a side effect.
Mhm.
So the money that you make is directly correlated to the amount of businesses that you have changed. And this is something fundamentally that Nancy and I focus on, because we always remind people that we would not be in business if people were not getting results. And that's the truth. And our business is growing every year because we continue to get people results. We continue to have people refer others to us. Now, in the very beginning, it's hard to understand that, because you're at a stage in business where you're just looking to generate revenue. You're just looking to be cash positive. So it may be challenging to look at business through that lens. And it took me a while to do so, because you're so focused on, proving your concept, working with as many people as possible, whether they're a good fit or not, and just having some sort of sustainable revenue coming in,
Mhm.
that you sometimes can lose focus on exactly why you're doing what you're doing. And sometimes it's best to take a pause and take a step back and realize the most successful people out there, the most successful brands and businesses, are the ones that have built the most know, like, and trust, where everything that they do is for the person that they're working with. And I had this conversation with a client earlier today, and I said, could we be charging more for everything that we do? Absolutely. But Nancy and I are so ROI focused, meaning when someone comes into either working in her agency or hiring me one to one or joining our mastermind or joining our community, we want the price to be so right and such a good fit for that individual that when they think about it, it's only going to take X amount of clients or X amount of sales to make this a positive ROI. It becomes a no brainer. So there's a lot of people out there that, outprice themselves because they feel that the higher the price point, the better the offer is. And sometimes people fall for that tactic. Now, I don't want to say we're on the inexpensive side. We are on the investment side of things where it is an investment. You know, it's an investment going in, and you need to treat it like one and not like an expense. So this kind of goes back to that desperation person,
Mhm.
right? So we've had people that want to join our program and they're like, "Well, I need to start having sales right away." And we turn those people away because we know if we want to deliver the best experience for them, if we want to get them the best results, they're going to have to go into this with the same mentality that we do. And both myself and Nancy and the other individual have to bring something to the table.
Mhm.
What we have to bring to the table is the coaching, the tool, the strategy that that person needs so they can deploy and get to where they want to be in their business. What that person working with us is bringing to the table is taking action. As long as they take action on what we are suggesting to do, they are going to see a result. And too many people fall into this trap of really just looking for the next sale. And
Mhm.
to your point, people can smell desperation from a mile away. And this is very clear and apparent on LinkedIn. People can tell if you actually care about helping them succeed. So if you're connecting with someone on LinkedIn or they're connecting with you, and in the note of that connection request, they're just selling and pitching you off the bat. Hey, could you use an extra $10,000 to $20,000 a month
Mhm.
in your business? Book a
Mhm.
call here and I can tell you more how. You have no idea who I am. You have no idea what I do, and you have no idea about my business. So how can you make such a blatant lie of a claim that you can help me generate 10 to 20,000 extra dollars a month when we've never spoken before? So as long as you check your ego at the door, because that's your greatest overhead. In business, if you let your ego get the best of you, you are destined for failure because people can feel ego. They can feel that all you care about is getting their credit card. And I let people close themselves. I don't have to close people anymore. I just ask the
Mhm.
right questions that makes them confident in saying, you know what? I'm ready to join. What's our next step? And that's the best approach to have.
I'm in agreement pretty much across the board. I think it's something where on I'll work backwards. I think a proper sale is something that is a foregone conclusion so that I didn't have to sell it. I think when you focus on the customer experience, that is what makes it easier for someone to not feel like they're being sold. I had a negotiator come on and we talked about the difference between persuasion and influence. Persuasion is that 80s and 90s tactic of I can help you make this much money when you don't know anything about my business. So you're trying to persuade me into getting on a call and because you're throwing a number out that seems like something that I would love to be able to make. Influence is being able to give someone some answers so that they can actually see the progress and things that they can achieve. And then once they believe it takes it from being possible to being plausible, then people are willing to have that actual conversation. So yes, on that as well. I would say with the no like trust, I'm actually going to say that there are two stages that I look at. There's the stage before that because some people don't even believe it's possible, and sometimes you have to plant the seed of this is possible so that they know that it is something that they can actually achieve. And I think the people that are really good at that part will start to be able to have that conversation. So it's not just they know, it's not just the audience knowing who they are. It's important for the person to know that it's something that's possible because possible gives birth to it being plausible. And then that's where it goes into where I call it like the four C's: clarity, competence, confidence, and then consistency. So first you have to have the clarity of this is possible and you need to believe that you can do it because if you don't believe you can do it, this is why I have an appreciation for you talking about 12 months. If you're committed to saying that you're going to do something for 12 months, that is more than enough time for you to be able to figure out if it's something that you're actually supposed to be doing and make tweaks along the way to be able to get to where you're actually supposed to be doing it and doing it in a way that's going to get you the results. If you're doing something where you're saying, well, and I'm going to give myself a quarter, you may see some progress, but it could just like that's the thing with understanding the customer journey and understanding your business journey. There are sometimes people have a good quarter. Like it could just be that time of the year. I'll explain to people, I'll say, if you have a business that requires people to be in the house, then you probably do well in fall and winter. If you have something where it requires people to be out of the house, then you probably do better in spring and summer. If you're not looking at things like that and you're going, well, I had a great spring, I had a great summer, And then, WinterCon comes around and you're selling something where people have to be outside. I'm on the West Coast. It's cold. Don't sell me about being outside if it's cold. I don't want to be out in the snow. I don't want to go through all the rest of that. You have to understand your business. You have to understand your audience, and you have to make sure that you're conveying what you need to be able to convey. But it also goes back to what you were saying of you have to be able to plan these things out and be intentional. If you know that there's a slow period, what I tell people is use that slow period to cover that no like. So by the time you get through the no like trust and it gets back to picking up, then you've already done the heavy lifting. If it's 11 touch points, use that time to be able to cover the 11 touch points. So by the time it comes to actually selling them on something, you've given them all the information, all insights. You've taken them from this is not only something that you can do, this is something that you can most likely achieve. And then by then you're like, okay, you built up their confidence. They start to create the thought in their mind where they can say, you know what, this is not only something I can do, but I believe I can do it, and I believe you're the right person to be able to help me get there. So with that, I know you've created the Expert Content Society and you have things in place where there is a system, but it's a system that actually allows people to be authentic. And I think what gets lost is people think that systems won't allow you to be authentic. But what I would say to that is consistency leads to foundation, and foundation leads to trust. And trust is part of being authentic because if you're a reliable person, then when you say that you're going to do something, people actually believe you. So, can you talk a bit more about the Expert Content Society and what you've set up?
So, what Nancy and I started to find through a lot of market research, but also a lot of things that were being voiced to us from the people that we were working with, but just
Mm,
people that were connected to on social media, is that they were having a tough time staying on top of their LinkedIn content, but also the quality of their content. And something that you were talking about earlier is, with the rise of AI, specifically ChatGPT, Claude, all the other stuff that's out there, the output is only as good as the input or the person that is using the AI tool. So Nancy and I were early adapters when ChatGPT first came out.
mhm.
And where it is now, obviously, it's nowhere where it was. But Nancy and I had a conversation about 6 months ago, and she said, "How cool would it be if we took your LinkedIn content strategy and my knowledge of building GPTs, which are personalized and privatized prompts through ChatGPT, that could help people create really good content on LinkedIn?" And I said, "That sounds pretty awesome." So after a lot of time and energy and effort, March of this year, we did a soft launch for the Expert Content Society, which it is a part community, part membership. So you have to be a member to be a part of it. You get access to 6 prompts every week, every month. So
Mhm.
every month there's a theme, and you get access to 24 personalized prompts, and each prompt creates a different type of content.
Yes.
So an image text post, a quote tile, a carousel post, a video, a poll, and a newsletter edition. And it's not just like, tell us who you are and who this is for. Great, here's a post.
Mm,
Each prompt has about 5 or 6 questions that you're being asked. And it's all based around a specific monthly theme, like attention and awareness or why you're the go-to person. So each prompt is themed for a specific month.
mhm.
The community aspect is we want people to kind of collaborate. We have conversation circles within the platform where people can ask Nancy and I and the community questions about LinkedIn. They can share their daily posts. We can make community announcements. There's a welcome thread where people can share what it is that they do and who they're looking introductions for. So we did a little soft launch for that back in March, and through just word of mouth, we ended up with about 150 members, 100, yeah, about 130 some odd members, and we then really build up some strategic partners along the way, and we did a huge launch back in July. We now have almost 275 members in the community. But what we're hearing from people is a lot of, I've never seen this much engagement. I've never
Mm,
seen this many impressions. And it's not like we hacked the system. Nancy and I confidently know exactly what people should be posting on LinkedIn. It should be thought leadership. It should be storytelling. It should be vulnerability and connecting yourself more deeply to the reader. And the more deeply revealing the content is and more helpful the content is, the greater engagement. And I've seen this myself. I jumped on board and I started using Nancy's prompts about 4 months ago. And literally every single post I make now, when I go through the prompting and I edit it and then post it, it gets significant engagement now. And there's no hack to it. And it's just amazing. And it's new people every single time. But the way that we like to explain what the Expert Content Society is, imagine having a full time copywriter
Hmm.
and a full time marketing agency in your back pocket at all times for $79 a month. So if you think about how much it would cost you to hire a full-time copywriter and a full-time marketing agency, you're looking at somewhere between $4,000 to $10,000 a month. So, and the great thing is, the more time that Nancy and I spend building out these GPTs every single month, the better they get, and the better the content gets, the better the traction people get. So it ends up being this win-win scenario where now people are seeing the true value of how to make LinkedIn work through your content because it's spurring conversation. It's having people being reached out by the readers, and it's allowing people to connect offline where the client conversion is actually taking place.
Absolutely. Okay, well, I know we're coming up on time, so I want to bring it around to we're talking about LinkedIn, but a lot of the principles and things that you're giving and the conversation that we're having is universal. It's not just about LinkedIn as far as a platform. It's the importance of understanding the connection that you're trying to establish with the audience. It's understanding how to be able to structure your business in a way that makes sense and allows you to be intentional and consistent. So if people don't do anything else, but they just, out of all the things that we've covered, what's one thing that you would tell someone to do to be able to get started? So then this way they can start taking action and then they can start putting themselves along the path where if you ask them, is this something that you can commit to for 12 months? They can confidently actually say yes. So like, what's one thing someone should do to be able to get started?
Well, I would say is take advantage of the 100 invite credits per week that you're given on LinkedIn,
Mm,
because if you don't connect with the right people, you're not going to have the right people viewing your profile. You're not going to have the right people engaging in your content. So people say, well, no one's engaging in my content. Well, it's one of two reasons why: your content stinks, or the people that you have in your network are not a good fit for that content. So before you start producing any content, if someone could just focus on connecting with ideal clients from a profession or industry standpoint, or business allies from an industry or professional title standpoint, that's going to set you up for success. Because when you do start producing content that is geared towards those people that you've been connecting with, you're going to see engagement off the bat. And that's where the relationship marketing side of things starts to take place.
got it. Love it. What I'll do is I'll explain it for the earlier stage businesses that will hear it, but may or may not understand it. You want to find people that are your ideal customers, but you also want to find people that are either on adjacent, like parallel paths of what you're doing. The thing that normally people do when they first start is they think they have to be all things to all people. Find someone where your expertise starts and stops. If you know that it starts and stops at one point, find the person that comes up in the next part of that process. The better you understand the process, the better you can start connecting with people. Because when people reach out and they do these connections, they'll send something, and a lot of people are reaching out because they feel like it's a good sale. But what you could be doing, and one of the best ways to be able to actually build out an actual network, is to say, listen, this is where I start and stop. I feel like in the workflow, this is where you would pick up. Bring in a certain amount of value. And then once I get people to a certain stage, and it's a smooth transition for them to go over to you. Or it can be, listen, I come after what you do. I may know some people that when I do my lead generation, I get them and they're not ready for me. So I may be able to bring those people over to you. You help them, and then you can bring them back over to me. And then this way, everyone eats. And this is where you start to build up your value network, where people actually start to see the value in what you're doing. It's not just about being able to get the audience to be able to do it. The small businesses and entrepreneurs, a lot of the business that we get comes through referrals. So understand who you want to be able to work with, network with. And if you can do that, that is going to be one of those things that Scott's explaining. If you start there, then everything else that you do after that allows you to be able to get the people that, even if you post something, those people know what you're doing and they will either repost it or they'll share it or they'll leave a comment. It leaves it on the feed longer. It just makes it so that more people get to see it and more people are co-signing on what you do because they understand that you actually put some thought into it. So knowing that we're coming up on time, I'm going to bring it back around to the promise and say by the end of this episode, you said you'll know exactly when to throw out your old playbook and how to adapt without losing yourself, whether it's work, relationships, building something meaningful. This conversation with Scott will help you thrive when the rules keep changing. So we've covered the evolution of LinkedIn. We've covered if you're doing something and you realize it's not necessarily working, that you have to be able to take a step back and actually evaluate it and then make sure that what you're doing isn't just about you and your ego. It's about the people that you want to be able to help. And then it's also looking at the other people that can help you by showing up and bringing value. So my father used to say, if you're not helping, you're taking up space, and you're probably in the way of someone that can actually help. So if you're not bringing value, step to the side, pay attention to what's going on, look at what someone's doing, and then figure out how to be able to create your own version of it, and then step back into that conversation, into that room. But don't be the person that's just in the feed, posting just to be posting because you're blocking other people that can actually help. And then you're also making it so that people have less of a reason to want to pay attention to anything that you're saying. Because if they see 5 posts and only, one of them or half of one is relevant, then after a certain point, they're going to start to tune you out. I want to thank you so much for your time. You're welcome to be able to come back. I feel like we barely scratched the surface on what you do and the help that you can provide people. So we'll put a cap on it for now, but we can always be able to bring you back in if you have the time. What I'll say is like, share, and subscribe. What I'll do is I'll be turning this into a mini series so that we can cover some of the specific talking points. And then if you have any events or anything coming up, let me know and I'll make sure that I put it in the description.
Awesome. Appreciate that. And just grateful to be here. And if anybody wants to learn more, just go to thetimetogrowcom and you can find out about how we're helping people.
Yes, let's before we cap, tell people exactly where to be able to find you. LinkedIn, obviously, but there are some people that like to go directly to the person, and there are some people that like to go to the company or whatever it is that you're doing. So tell people the best place to find you and get in contact with you for the different things that you have going on.
Yeah, so LinkedIn is a great place, as Sean mentioned, to connect. You can just search Scott Aaron Coach and I'll come right up. People that want to directly email me, just email scott@scottaaron.net. And to see all of what my wife and I have to offer with all of our programs and courses and the ways that we help people grow, you just have to go to thetimetogrowcom to learn more.
Perfect. All right. Well, we'll leave it there. Again, thank you so much for your time. And I will check back in with you because I know that I have stuff coming up. You have stuff coming up. I will give you an idea of the timing of when this is going to go live so that we can make sure that if you have anything pending, we'll make sure that you're able to get that out there to the people as well.
Perfect.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And everybody, we'll see you next time. Thank you for tuning in to the Strategic Thinkers podcast. Remember, when you can make the inconvenient convenient, people are willing to pay you for the experience. The better the experience, the more they'll not only pay you, but help others pay you. Serving as brand champions. My name is Sean Atkinson, and I'm wishing you well on your journey to your definition of success. If you find this podcast interesting, helpful, worth a listen, like, share, and subscribe. Leave a positive review so people know to check it out, and I'll see you next time.